Some families bury their dead. Mine buried me alive. My name is Alina Cross. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the last words I ever heard from my family were scribbled in Sharpie on a torn receipt. You'll figure it out. I came home on a Tuesday. Smelled like burnt eggs and cheap coffee from my shift at Denny's, hair pulled back tight, feet aching. I remember I was humming a song, something stupid and happy, and that makes it worse. Because when I opened the front door, the house was silent. Empty. I stood in the living room and stared at where the couch used to be. The TV was gone. So were the pictures on the wall. The fake Ivy mom had glued to the mantel. Even the rug was missing, just dusty floorboards and drag marks from the furniture. I dropped my backpack. Mom, I called.
Dad.
No answer. I ran through the house like a ghost, checking closets, bathrooms, even the garage. Everything was gone.
Gone.
Then I saw it. On the kitchen counter. A receipt from Walgreens. On the back, scrawled in my mother's sharp, pointed handwriting. You'll figure it out. That's all they left me. No money. No instructions. No goodbye. Just a 6-word message and a house stripped like a crime scene. I stood there in that silent kitchen for what felt like hours, staring at that note like it was a curse. I was 17. No ID, no car, no safety net. Just a part-time job that paid under the table and a family that had vanished in the night. Later, I'd find out they didn't just leave the house, they left the state. Moved 2 states over. Changed numbers. Cut ties. But in that moment, I didn't know any of that. I just knew they were gone. That night, I sat on the front steps with nothing but a backpack, a dying phone, and a crumpled receipt in my hand. A neighbor walked past. Didn't even ask if I was okay. People never really look at girls like me, not until we're dead or on the news. I didn't cry. Not then. I couldn't afford to. I was too busy trying to figure out where I could sleep that night without getting jumped or arrested. And somewhere in the pit of my stomach, under the shock and hurt, something else was growing. Not fear. Not sadness. Something sharper. Quieter.
Hate.
They thought they could leave me behind. Erase me. But they didn't know the girl they abandoned. Not yet. You don't just wake up one day and abandon your daughter. That kind of cruelty is planted, watered, grown over years. And mine started before I could even spell my own name. I was never the golden child. That was Ryan, my older brother. Perfect teeth, perfect grades, perfect lies. And I was the opposite. Too loud, too curious, too alive. My mother, Teresa, said I was difficult before I could talk. That I cried too much. Asked too many questions. She used to grab me by the wrist, so hard her nails left half-moon bruises, and whisper, through clenched teeth. Why can't you just be normal? My father?
Greg?
He was a ghost in a recliner. If Mom was a hurricane, Dad was fog, always present, never protecting. He'd stare at the wall while she ripped me to pieces, blinking slow like he wasn't in the room. Dinner was a performance. Ryan would talk about his football stats, his new girlfriend, his grades. I'd barely open my mouth before Mom was hurling backhanded compliments or straight-up insults. Alina got a C in chemistry. Again. Maybe if you spent less time drawing in your notebook like a lunatic, you'd pass something. And if I dared respond? Watch your tone, young lady. My drawings were the only thing that made me feel sane. I used to sketch entire cities in the margins of my homework. Girls with wings. Forests on fire. Escapes. Fantasies. Futures. Ryan found one once, a comic I'd been working on for weeks. He ripped it in half and shoved it in my locker, soaked in mop water. Told me I'd never be anything but trash with crayons. When I told my mom, she shrugged. Maybe don't leave your trash where people can find it. By 15, I stopped trying to win them over. By 16, I was sleeping with headphones in to drown out their laughter when they thought I wasn't listening. But even then, even after all of that, a part of me still thought they were mine. That no matter how cruel they were, they'd never abandon me. Until one night, about a month before they left, I snapped. It was Ryan's graduation dinner. They took us to some overpriced steakhouse. Ryan got a watch. A trip to Cancun. I got told to smile more. You're ruining the pictures. When we got home, I confronted her.
Mom.
I said, why do you even keep me around if you hate me so much? She blinked, smiled like ice. I've asked myself that same question. She turned off the hall light and walked upstairs. And I remember just standing there, in the dark, like something inside me had cracked clean in half. That was the last real conversation I had with her. For weeks later, they were gone. And you know what still gets me? They didn't just leave. They planned it.
Packed. Moved.
Disconnected the utilities. Transferred jobs. Closed accounts. All behind my back. They looked me in the eye every morning and pretended everything was fine, while building their escape route. Like I was a piece of furniture they were tired of hauling around. And the sickest part? They probably toasted champagne in that new house without me. Probably laughed about how they finally did it. But here's what they didn't do. They didn't kill me.
They tried.
But they failed. They say grief has 5 stages. But when your family ghosts you like a bad Tinder date, the stages are different. Mine went like this.
Shock.
Survival. Rage. Obsession.
Clarity.
In the early days, I didn't have the luxury to feel much. I crashed on a friend's couch for a week until her mom found out and kicked me out. Then it was the shelter. Then someone's basement. Then a room above a bowling alley that smelled like piss and mildew, but I could afford it. Barely. I scraped together rent with tips from the diner, cleaned bathrooms at a strip mall, and lied about my age just to get a 3rd gig bussing tables at a dive bar. Some nights, I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering if I was crazy. Maybe they were kidnapped. Maybe something went wrong. But that hope? It started rotting. The first clue came from a neighbor, Mrs. Jennings. She saw me walking past the old house and stopped to talk. I thought you left with them, she said, squinting. What do you mean? Well, the moving truck came around midnight. Whole thing was loaded in hours. Quiet as ghosts. I figured y'all were going somewhere new. Midnight. Like a heist. Later, I found out they'd told relatives I'd run away. That I was troubled. Unstable. Dangerous. A family friend said my mother called me a ticking time bomb and that they had to protect themselves. Protect themselves from me? I remember staring at the wall that night, my reflection fractured in the broken mirror across the room. It hit me. This wasn't abandonment. This was erasure.
They didn't leave me. They removed me.
And the world didn't question it, because of how carefully they'd built the lie. The stories, the timing, the silence. They knew no one would come looking for me, because they'd spent 17 years convincing everyone I wasn't worth finding. I wanted to scream. Instead, I started digging. Online. Late at night. Between shifts. I found their new address, 2 states away, in some gated suburban nightmare with pastel siding and perfect lawns. They'd sold the house in cash. Ryan was enrolled in a private college. Mom had joined some bougie neighborhood church. Dad finally got promoted. And me? I was the ghost they stepped over to build their second chance. But that was when everything shifted. Because I realized something important, something life-altering. If they could fake a clean slate, so could I. They didn't want me?
Fine.
I would become someone so far out of their reach, they wouldn't recognize me even if I walked into their new kitchen and handed them coffee. I stopped checking their photos. Stopped fantasizing about the why. I stopped needing their answers and started building my own. But I made myself a quiet little promise, right there in that piss-soaked room above the bowling alley. If they ever come back, I will burn them to the fucking ground. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a girl nobody believed in, stacking small victories in the dark, one unpaid electric bill away from breaking, but never folding. I didn't have a plan at first, just a hunger. To survive. To become so untouchable that even the memory of me would make them uncomfortable. No one handed me a ladder, I built one. With blistered hands and broken nights. I got my GED at 19. Not because I had the time, but because I refused to let them be the last ones to define me. Community college came next. Then scholarships. While my coworkers blew paychecks at bars, I saved every penny. Ramen for weeks. One pair of shoes. Zero apologies. I studied criminal psychology. Fitting, right? The more I learned about manipulation, narcissism, triangulation, the more I saw them in every lecture. I wasn't crazy. I'd been conditioned to believe abuse was love. By 25, I had my degree. By 27, I had a job that paid more than both my parents ever made. Corporate security. Irony of ironies. I was paid to spot liars, to investigate internal fraud, to hunt the kind of people who hid behind charm and status. People like my family. I built a life. Quiet. Stable.
Mine.
No more shelters. No more fear. I bought a small condo. Got a rescue dog named Mercy. Woke up to silence, but it was the good kind. And for a while that was enough. Until 12 years after the day they disappeared, I got the email. Subject line. We've missed you.
Can we talk?
It was from my mother.
At first, I laughed.
Out loud.
So hard I scared the dog.
Then I read it again. And again. My hand shook. My heart didn't. The message was short.
Syrupy. Performed.
She said they were sorry for the past. That Ryan always asks about you. That she'd love to catch up. No mention of what they did. No apology for the note. No explanation for the years of silence. Just that fake, brittle tone the kind narcissists use when they smell something they want. I almost deleted it. But instead, I answered.
Sure.
Let's talk. Not out of forgiveness. Out of strategy. Because here's what she didn't know. The girl they left behind was dead. And the woman they just emailed? She knew how to dismantle entire corporations for a living. If they wanted to come back, I'd let them walk straight into my hands. I started collecting. Every message. Every call. Every manipulative half-apology. I played the part of the prodigal daughter, the one who still wanted them, needed them. I let them think I was desperate to belong again. I visited. I smiled. I took notes.
They cried.
Told me how hard things had been. How Ryan was struggling. How Dad lost his job. How Mom's health was in decline. And me? I nodded. I offered to help. And behind that smile, I began to dig. Into Ryan's shady finances. Into the fraud buried beneath their new church donations. Into the lies they'd told so often, they forgot which ones were real. I traced every step of their second life and marked every crack. Because this time, they would be the ones left behind. And I wouldn't need to lift a single finger in violence. I'd just hold up a mirror and let them destroy themselves. Revenge isn't fire. It's ice. It waits, sharpens, freezes them in their own delusions until they shatter on contact. When I walked back into their lives, they thought they'd won. At the first dinner, Mom called me so mature now. Ryan said, "You look different," like I'd grown a second head. Dad barely met my eyes. They made excuses. Talked around the truth like it was radioactive. Things were complicated back then. We didn't know what else to do. You were so angry all the time. I let them talk. Let them dig their own graves with every word. Behind the scenes, I was 5 steps ahead. I had access to databases. Financial forensics. A network of ex-cops and whistleblowers who owed me favors. Ryan had opened a shell company last year. A consulting firm that hadn't paid taxes in 2 cycles and had suspicious money flowing in and out. I pulled the records. Tied it to church donations from Mom's circle, tax write-offs for fake charities. They were laundering money.
Sloppily. Desperately.
And then I made a call, not to the police. To Anita Briggs, a journalist I knew from a corporate takedown 2 years prior. She owed me, and she loved stories like this. Make it clean, I said. But make it brutal. Over the next few weeks, I spoon-fed her everything. Documents. Screenshots. Interviews. I even gave her the note they left me all those years ago. The headline dropped on a Sunday morning. Suburban saints or con artists. A family's trail of financial crimes and a daughter's long road to justice. It went viral in hours. Their pictures were everywhere. Smiling church portraits, now side by side with court subpoenas. Teresa Cross, my mother, was under investigation for fraud. Greg for accessory and tax evasion.
Ryan?
A full audit and criminal charges pending. I watched it unfold from my couch. In my robe. Coffee in hand. By noon, my inbox was full of messages from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in over a decade. Some wanted to reconnect. Some had no idea. Some just sent long apologies, drowning in guilt. I didn't respond to a single one. At 3:14 p.m., my mother called. I let it ring, then sent her to voicemail. Alina, her voice cracked through the speaker. What did you do? You don't understand what you've done to this family.
Oh, Mom.
I understood perfectly. You left me with 6 words on a scrap of paper. I responded with a byline and a criminal investigation. Fair trade. The best part? I didn't touch them.
Didn't lie.
Didn't twist the knife. I just gave the world the truth. And the world did what it always does when it sees a carefully curated lie unravel.
It turned on them. Fast.
Their friends vanished. The church released a statement distancing themselves. The HOA even filed a complaint to have them removed from the neighborhood for reputational damage. Poetic. They tried to erase me, but it was their names getting scrubbed from welcome lists and donor walls. And I was just getting started. A family built on lies only needs one truth to implode. And I delivered it like a scalpel to their carefully constructed reality. In the weeks after the article dropped, I watched their world fold like damp paper. One layer at a time. First came the headlines. Then the subpoenas. Then the silence. The kind that echoes when people stop returning your calls and the curtain finally falls. Ryan tried to play victim on social media. Posted some vague bullshit. You never know who's really behind the mask. Family is complicated. Prayers appreciated. I almost laughed. Comments roasted him alive. People pulled screenshots from the exposé. Someone even found his high school yearbook quote, "Family is forever," and plastered it over a mugshot mock-up. He deleted everything within 2 days. Meanwhile, Mom tried to rally the church, beg them to pray for her persecuted family. But no one wants to back a sinking ship. She was removed from 3 committees. A wellness retreat refunded her deposit. Even her best friend, Linda, the woman who used to bake us sugar cookies, posted a cryptic "Some people aren't who they pretend to be" status and unfriended her.
Poof. Gone. Dad?
He finally spoke up to a reporter. Said he had no knowledge of his wife's finances and never agreed with how she handled Alina. Coward. Didn't defend her.
Didn't admit his part.
Just tried to slip out the side door of a house he helped burn down. But the final nail? That came 3 weeks later. I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. The penmanship was careful, like she was trying not to shake. It was from my mother. Alina, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I am asking you to stop. You've made your point. We're suffering. You've won. Please don't take it any further. Love, Mom. Don't take it any further? She thought this was about vengeance. She didn't understand. This wasn't about hurting her. This was about reclaiming me. They built a life on my bones. Walked away like I was debris. I didn't destroy them. I just removed the scaffolding propping them up. And now, with nothing to lean on, they were crumbling. A week after the letter, I got a message from Ryan's ex, a girl named Cassidy. We'd barely known each other in high school. She said, "I don't know what you did, but thank you. He used to call you crazy. Now he looks scared. First time I've seen him sweat in years." I didn't reply, because this wasn't about acknowledgement or applause. It was about standing in the rubble of the empire they built and realizing I survived it. They couldn't look at me and see a daughter. But the world finally saw them for what they were. And that was justice. Not the explosive kind, but the kind that lingers, that stains. Their names would never be clean again. Not in this lifetime. And I was finally free of the weight of trying to prove anything to anyone. Their empire was ash. And from it I was rising. Sometimes healing doesn't feel like a sunrise. It feels like silence, stillness, the absence of fear where it used to live in your chest like a second heartbeat. After the collapse, the the noise died down. The media moved on. The public found someone new to crucify. But I didn't go back to who I was before. Because that girl? The one crying on the curb at 17, holding a note that said, "You'll figure it out."
She died.
And I buried her with love. In her place stood a woman carved from fire and silence. Not cold, not cruel, just clear. I moved cities. Quietly. No announcements. I bought a house with a wraparound porch, big windows, and a garden that I plant with my bare hands. Because I wanted to feel something grow that no one could take from me. I still work in corporate security, but now I run my own firm. Female-owned, female-staffed. We specialize in protecting women from people like my parents, the manipulators, the gaslighters, the predators in pressed shirts and fake smiles. I get calls from women who whisper like they're doing something wrong. I tell them, "You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're waking up." That's the real revenge. Not the public downfall. The ripple effect. The broken chain. The woman who gets to live freely because someone before her refused to stay quiet. Some nights, I still get the urge to check on them, to see what else has crumbled. But I don't, because they don't get to live in my head anymore. That space is reserved for peace. For music. For the dog asleep at my feet. For mercy. Fitting name, huh? Once, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and didn't recognize her. Not because I looked different, but because for the first time I didn't flinch. I didn't brace for impact. I just existed.
Fully. Safe.
Loved by the people I chose. By myself. I went back to therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how deeply they tried to break me and how I still stood. My therapist said something that stuck. You don't owe anyone a happy ending. You owe yourself a beginning. So I built one. No flashy revenge. No dramatic confrontations. Just a life so full, so fiercely my own. It left no room for the past to breathe. But still, sometimes I think about her. That 17-year-old girl on the porch, waiting for a door to open that never would. And if I could say one thing to her now, I'd say, you figured it out. And you didn't just survive. You turned every scar into armor. You became someone they could never control again. You'll figure it out.
6 words that gutted me.
6 words they thought would break me. 12 years later, I finally wrote back. I didn't send it. Didn't need to. But I wrote it anyway, folded the paper, sealed it in an envelope I'll never mail. Just 6 words, staring back at them from the abyss they left me in. I did. Without any of you. Closure doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like indifference, like walking past the wreckage and not even slowing down to look. After everything, the article, the investigations, the shame they drowned in, I could have kept going. Could have pressed harder. Dragged them through more dirt. But I didn't. Because the ultimate power isn't destruction. It's disconnection. It's being so far beyond them that even their names feel like someone else's burden. A few months ago, I heard Ryan took a plea deal. He won't do jail time, but his career's over. Word is he moved back in with Mom. Funny how poetic things can get when the universe is left unsupervised. They're still in that same house. The one with the manicured lawn and dead roots underneath. My mother reached out again last week.
A real letter this time.
Handwritten, shaking like before. You made your point. We've suffered. But maybe there's a way forward. There's not. Because the truth is, I'm already ahead. I have people who show up. Chosen family. Friends who would never leave me behind with a note and a locked door. People who don't love me if I behave. They love me because I lived. Because I fought. Because I never let their abandonment become my identity. They taught me something my parents never could. Love isn't a transaction. It's a decision. Every day.
To stay.
To support.
To grow.
And I've made that decision for myself, for the people I protect, for the young girls who call me after their own mothers say, "Figure it out." The cycle ends here. In my office, there's a framed photo of 17-year-old me. Not smiling. Not posing. Just real.
Raw.
Under it I wrote, "The The girl they left. The woman I became. Because this was never about revenge. Not really. It was about returning to myself. The version of me that never needed them. The voice that was buried under years of silence, now loud, alive, and unapologetic. Some people think closure means confrontation. But the truth? Sometimes closure is a quiet house, a full fridge, and never checking the mailbox again. I never got justice in court, but I got something better. A life. Unborrowed. Unbroken. Untouched by them. And if they ever wonder what I would say if I had one last chance, I'd just give them their words back. Folded in half.
Neat. Precise.
Like a mirror. You'll figure it out. And then I'd walk away. Just like they did. But this time, I'd leave the door open for the girl behind me to walk through.